Hey, Wholeness, welcome. This is Josh, Integrating Presence, and today rejoined with Wendy Nash. Wendy, what's up?
Well, I'm here on Gubby Gubby country in Queensland in Caboolture, and this morning, very literally, closer to the ground. So today I'm sitting slightly to the side because my foot is resting on my bed on a cold packed compressed in the rice method. There you go. Because one small pebble and I just fell over. It's not at my strength, but I'm doing this thing where I walk around my neighborhood every day, a few times a week, and just report the footpaths that aren't working, or and I write posts on footpath quality and the impact and what I'm learning. It's very interesting. Footpaths are much more interesting than you can imagine. You sort of take them for granted, like every piece of infrastructure. You just take it for granted, but I have learnt so much. I've been doing it for maybe a month and a half, and today's one was actually about a path. And I had my bike because it's a big cargo e-bike, so it's about 40 kilos, and I don't know what that is in American numbers. You'll have to figure that out. But yeah, I don't know how to work out all those Fahrenheit things. So it's technically, I know it's avoirdupois. So
Last country on earth, Fahrenheit. Yes.
it's like, no, I think you're up there with, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or somewhere. um, so, um, so there's a stormwater drain, which means there's no accessibility ramp. So already that was a problem. And then I walk along, and in Australia, when you're on a path and they put in a sort of two metal bars a little bit apart, so you have to do a zigzag around that. That's to stop people like bikes and stuff like that. But it also stops people who have legitimate accessibility needs, like prams and wheelchairs and all that. And so and where I went, and then further on, it was actually quite muddy on the it was quite muddy build up because we've had a little bit of rain lately, and so the leaves were gathered, and one part of the footpath was actually quite pooled in all that mud, and not too bad, but I just didn't see a pebble. And when I was trying to walk back, because the path actually goes out onto this beautiful park and then onto the rail trail, which would just be amazing for people on mobility scooters, just make it a sort of a real life quality change for them. And I was walking back, and I was trying to figure out how to go through these banana benders, we call them, and my ankle just rolled, often rolls now because it just does it all the time, you know. So I went down, the bike went down. I thought I was going to break my nose because I whacked my nose. And yeah, I was going, oh, wow, this is actually thing. Oh, we have someone, Deborah Long,
Wellness.
C1,
Hello, Deborah.
C1M. So lovely to see you. Hi. So I fell over, and then it was the end of my little walking journey for today, for the week. Luckily, it's Thursday. I'll be back doing it next week. Sorry
Wow,
to my
that's true.
infrastructure guys. Say
You're
run. Yeah.
you're a trooper, Wendy. It was the eye last time, and maybe you'll give a quick update on that. And those banana benders, those aren't as much the States. They're in England and in Denmark quite a bit. But I guess it's to stop people from going through there really fast on like scooters and bikes and stuff like that. So people don't run people over or something like that. But like you said, they're a pain to get through. And if people have if they have like a scooter or whatever, they have to slow down, or they can't get through it, or have to do something else. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know the solution. Maybe you do.
Well, you actually don't need to have banana benders. You know, if people ride quickly, people ride quickly. A big part of the problem is that so much of our land space is just taken up by the car. So if you create streets that are safer for everybody to use, people will use them. And at the moment, we're all restricted because of this sort of privatization of public land, which is the car, which is the road. And people have this idea that they're not allowed, that only cars and motorized vehicles are allowed on roads, which now that you've lived in Denmark, you would go, yeah, that's not true.
That's
But
right.
you
In
probably
America, it
have.
is. Yeah, pretty much. In America, I mean, like people treat bikers like crap in America. for the
Yeah,
most part.
exactly,
Yeah. Not
exactly.
in Denmark. Denmark, they have like, oh, like total respect and, just as much right away, if not more, than everything else. So
Yeah,
that's
so,
strange.
anyway, so we've got Deborah Long, and she's asking, "What's my name? You look beatified," whatever that means, beautiful. Josh, your makeup is stunning today.
Is that
Yes, yes,
okay?
yes.
Okay. I actually don't have any on. So
Oh, there you go. Well, that makes all of us. So to follow up on my skin cancer last time, there you are, Joyce. It's the
mm.
body. It's just the body. The body just I'm slowly getting to this idea that the body isn't against me. The body does what the body does. And so of course it's going to do what it does. It's no different to any other part of us. So anyway, so
Subject to the
that's
laws
my
of nature. That's right.
exactly. So that's just no, birth, old age, sickness, and death. So now
Yes.
I know that we were going to talk
Well,
about the title, but
that's right.
maybe you want to go.
So I've titled this. I don't know which is the proper English there. Losing in parentheses um, balance in Dhamma. So that's kind of optional. So we can talk about the positive balance in Dhamma too. And I have in this 37th installment of the Ongoing Life series with Wendy Nash, inquiring into meditation practice on and off the cushion. So I recently witnessed a reoccurrence of various perplexing sentiments from the USA West Coast Dhamma scene, which even parallel general society. After running this by Wendy, she rightly pointed out tinges of self-righteousness in my approach.
Sorry about that, Josh.
No, it's very helpful. Yeah, it's a tough one to get around for me. So we'll work on that. So how do we exercise judiciousness and discernment while observing life at large and in meditation without falling into traps of judgmentalism and unhelpful righteousness? Subsequently, how do we skillfully convey this in our speech and actions? What else can catch us off balance in meditation and the wider world? How do we regain balance, and how does all this interrelate? Please join us as we fill in the details and get into all this and more. And wow, I'm just now realizing Wendy kind of lost balance there.
I
Oh
just needed
no.
to
So
I just needed to shuffle myself around because I felt a little bit uncomfortable. But nothing compared to. So Deborah Long has just written,
mm,
"Oh no, you got skin cancer." So just to let you know that I just got it in the nick of time. So I'm in Queensland, skin cancer capital of the world, and the minute you see anything at all, you're straight down to the skin doctor. Quick as a flash. So you just got to get there. So luckily they took it out and clinically clear. So, but I feel that your mum has cancer and that's no good. So I'm so sorry for you. So my dad died of cancer, but that's because he didn't go to the doctor. He's a guy, military man. So I hope that your mum recovers well, and that's a long time ago, my dad. So I hope your mum yeah, I hope she's just getting enough treatment that works for her. So, sending you lots of love, Deborah.
echo this sentiment, and also want to say that we do what we can to prevent too, right? We look at our diets, and Wendy takes precaution in the sun as well, I guess. And there's just so many causes and conditions involved in this. We do what we can, and then we still do what we can after that, right? And there's certain
Yeah,
things we can do, certain things we can't, I guess. Yeah.
and some
Always have
things.
love around it.
Yeah, a friend of mine, he just went to hospital. He felt something about his leg. Anyway, it turned out he had pancreatic cancer. Normally, you don't find out about pancreatic cancer until you're at
Wow.
stage 4. So,
Wow.
um, yeah, and I see thyroid cancer. I'm not so sure. I don't know anything about thyroid cancer.
Mm,
So, and it
mm.
is very sad. It's very sad. And yeah, lots of love and lots of um, yeah,
Hmm.
patience. It just these things are, and it just
Yeah.
takes it just takes a long time. So to heal, there's no you can't there's no shortcuts to pain, and you just have to bear with what you can bear with, and when it gets too much, throw a temper tantrum and you know, go out and dance and life and then get grumpy. So that is just
Coping
just the
mechanisms
deal.
are helpful too. We need
Yeah,
these when we can't do what like Dhamma things. I mean, even Dhamma practitioners, as part of that, is having coping mechanisms to rely on when we need to. For absolutely, and healthy
yeah,
ones. The more healthy we have coping, because there's some really not so good coping mechanisms, and there's some good ones. So
yeah,
well,
yeah. Drugs and alcohol generally not a great idea.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah.
understand,
I
like
understand. I've
sometimes
been there.
it's too raw and it's too painful, and some days you just don't want to be good. You're sick of
Do
it
you?
and you hate everything and you just hate everything. And
Yep.
it's a
It's okay not.
moonscape. It's a moonscape for a really long time. So I feel you. I feel you where you are, Deborah. So yeah. So there you are. We're here for you. We're here for you remotely.
Yes.
So,
Well, I mean, that's yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's right. Lots of love and the compassion. So there can never have enough compassion, and it's okay not to be okay all the time too, right? That's
oh yeah.
a classic one I like. Well, should we get into this as well? I mean, it kind of fits into this. I just wanted to start from where I saw this, and hopefully, I don't know if anybody knows if there's any really Dharma practitioners here, if they're familiar with like California Dharma. California's got some cliches going on. I think part of it is a really beautiful state. The weather is really nice. The people are loving for the most part. There's also a lot of problems out there. But anyway, I don't want to get into political things, but I joined this group and I saw this pre-pandemic. And then it kind of went away around that. At least I didn't witness it. I don't know. But then I saw it research. It's this very strange blend. So let me see if I can explain this. In there'll be kind of people cracking jokes about becoming enlightened. Okay, like basically, making fun of it and saying that it's not possible. Well, I mean, we don't. What is enlightenment anyway? So enlightenment, liberation, awakening, right? These are similar but maybe different, and I understand. I mean, it's a high bar, right? I mean, this is a hugely high bar, and it's a rare thing in the world to get to such a level of attainment. So it's understandable. And certain generations, including mine, like to give each other crap. At least guys do in my, especially older generations. They cruel to be kind of thing, right? And kind of it kind of releases the pressure, right? Because you have, you're told these teachings and they'll lead to enlightenment. And then, but it's little me that says this is not possible, right? And so it's kind of like everyone is bonding about how, I don't know, little me can't do this, and we're all in this together. And then we can kind of poke fun at it in order to take like an inferiority and turn it around into kind of like a superiority. Like, since we're adding our, I don't know, it's a lot of interpretation here, but it's kind of like, okay, since we're all recognize this and can kind of poke fun at it, then we're kind of, we feel better about ourselves when we lift each other up in a weird way. I don't know if I'm really describing this, but do you understand what it means? So the Buddha said that this is possible in this very life. And so, I just don't see the helpfulness in the long term of poking fun at that and saying that it's not possible for me and that it's kind of a joke. And, that's what it's implying. Now, if you said this explicitly, and no, they wouldn't say that, right? It just kind of like, taking some of the pressure off of like maybe expectations they feel or something like that. And I don't know, what I would have to do is sit down and do like a psychological interview with this type of response, right? To really know more. This is all my assumptions and my guessing. So Wendy, so how, if there's anything to that's of value, tell me how I'm getting it totally wrong, please, or how I'm getting it wrong. But then, how do you convey this without me looking like the same thing, like being
Yeah.
judgmental,
Yeah.
and yeah, righteous. And that's not how I want to come off. How do we point something out, that could be helpful in the long run, but then it's me up here saying you shouldn't be doing that down there, even though, so it's this weird dynamic, and I don't know how to call this out or confront people, because then I'm that guy. And I'll say another where I got it wrong after this too. Well, let me just say it real quick. So during the lockdowns, I was like, everybody was on Zoom all the time, and I kept like preaching, like, we're looking at a computer, we're talking to a computer. We're not really talking, because I could like I just could sense they're just in a trance, and they were, but that was my projection too. But here I find myself doing the same thing when I don't have full mindfulness in your very cool technique of expanding visual perception. That helps a lot. Then now I'm looking at a computer, a screen, and not right in front of Wendy. The mind can really trick in virtual reality. And I just wonder if we get more and more in virtual reality, how that might even, escalate, let's just say that. And so we get sucked in. I mean, our regular lives are a kind of a virtual reality anyway, because we're only seeing, a bit of the visual spectrum. There's so much more going on that we don't see, but we just assume, and even perception itself. Anyway, yada, yada, yada. Wendy, take over here.
So I'm going to go a slightly different way. So last week I discovered that my local councillor, so for Deborah and our listeners who might not be familiar, I have a community group to advocate for more transport choice. Everybody knows a couple of people who can't drive: kids, senior, disability, low income, cars broken down, broken foot, whatever. And yet we don't provide transport for them, which shows that we have an incomplete transport system. So I'm in the outer suburbs, and so I'm looking to close that transport gap in the outer suburbs. And councillors have an obligation in Australia to, as part of their code of conduct, to share on social media the relevant, appropriate one. What's going on. This is what's going on. And then, they get all the sort of status and glory that goes with that. But my local councillor, he has the transport portfolio. I know quite a lot by now, after 3.5 years of a transport group, about the transport portfolio in the outer suburbs in Caboolture, in my town. And he's blocked me. And so I found out on Friday, over the weekend, that he's actually not allowed to do that according to the code of conduct. So I wrote to the CEO of the local council, and I said, look, could you just give me the lowdown on code of conduct? I did very politely. And I also put a post on my Facebook group. I put a post on my social media group and just said, oh, look, this is what's happened. If anybody knows that councillor, could you reach out to them? And the reply came back, oh, right, it's against the regulations. Somebody said, I'll reach out to them. And so the reply back came to the councillor, to my friend, who said, she's off on her own tangent with her own community group, and I will unblock her. So he hasn't unblocked me yet. So there you go. And actually, he's not allowed to do that. It gets pretty nasty on social media, and I feel really sad for politicians because there's a lot of grief there. So I understand the yearning to do that, but actually, in my instance, he's completely out of order. He just feels uncomfortable because I go, well, actually, you haven't provided for safe pedestrian access here. I think what you're doing is great, but you haven't provided for safe temporary access here. Things like this. And so it's been an interesting journey about that, to sort of think about my own, and I felt myself going, oh, you're an idiot, you're a tosspot, you're a this, that, and oh, you're so pathetic. And then actually I realized that I was hurt by his unkindness. Fundamentally, that's what it was. I actually was hurt. And then owning that hurt. So to go back to your example of the California community, we are all in a state of confusion, not recognizing that we are hurt. So I imagine in California and in the US, people are terribly ambitious. It's quite competitive. You don't have good social security, so that if it falls over, like, you don't even have universal health care. Like, it's wow, what a basket case. So Therefore, it gets quite desperate to succeed. And that desperation to succeed, to be seen to be successful, is what can easily happen. And I was there for a long time just trying to gain enlightenment, trying to gain more awareness, and going, oh, maybe you can't do it anymore. And actually it was my own hurt towards my own experience, my own lack of success with the Dharma, my own insufficiencies that I was really grappling with. And I saw my friends and I saw other people, and they were really skilled in their practices. I was just hurt. And so often my temperament is to become superior and to be, you should be doing that and you can't do that, and all those things that you're saying. And so recognizing that we're just kind of confused and limited. And I guess for you, in how you're responding, I would perhaps encourage you to look at that part of you that wants to say, no, you've got it wrong. And I would probably go there. And before I do anything, I want to say, Amani Sos says hi. So hi, Amani. So yeah, just
Hello.
that's what I would say. And I hope I have answered your question.
I think it, well, yeah, if it, and it's opened up some other things, of course, too. And when I say this, it's not that it's wrong, you know what I mean? But in a way, yeah, you could say that it is wrong.
Mhm.
But it's like, okay, I want to. It's more about how do we reach in there and encourage each other and lift each other up instead of encouraging
Mhm.
inferiority. So you're talking about inferiority conceit. That's a conceit too. But then, you and I both, and most people do, we bounce back and forth from superiority to inferiority. And what I really like about this long game, when you put it in perspective at a really long game, we think about the Sama Sambuddha that we have and how many incalculables. Okay, that's longer than an eon. I don't know how many eons constitute an incalculable. It's this unfathomable amount of time that it took for him to gain these paramitas, which I don't know if they're usually considered perfections, which is not a helpful term for inferiority people, right? But so it's like building this up over eons and incalculable amount of times to get this to the point. So when it comes to, we look at fellow Dharma practitioners, we don't know how many lifetimes they have been practicing really intensely, right? And so it doesn't help. And then there's the comparison conceit too, right? When we're comparing ourselves to others. So that's what just kind of encourage the long view here, that it is possible. And if we consider this notion of maybe there could be past lives, and maybe there could be all this practice and parami built up, and that could explain why some people are seemingly further along than others. And, to me, it got to a point where, yeah, of course I can relate to that too. But then seeing this and being inspired by that, wow, I'm sitting next to someone that has all this wisdom and Wendy's heart. It's amazing. I mean, the aspiration you set and embody, I feel fairly well, is you bring it into Jesus, right? That loving everyone. I mean, what an amazing aspiration. Why not? Why not set the bar as high as you can? I mean, just don't tell everybody, because some people, they won't get it. But you don't have to tell anybody. The Tathagata, right? When they ask who the Buddha was, he's a Tathagata. And what one translation I like of that is, I am thus. You'll know me by my actions. I don't have to tell you who I am. Okay, I've got so many social media followers, or I wish I had more, or I've done this in my life. Well, that's all great and fine too, but how about, okay, this is how I am. Know me by the actions. I don't know that. So that's kind of what comes to mind around that. Yeah, encouragement and empowerment. How do we lift each other up and encourage each other? And it's real easy to talk about too, but what if how do we do that when we're having a bad day? When we really need it. And I think that's where we friends can help us out too when we need that, or if they have the capacity to. Yeah. So
All right. So I just looked up paramita and through one of the large language model AI systems. And para means the far shore, and mita means gone or arrived. Interestingly, you'd go gone or arrived, like they sound contradictory, but actually it means whatever. So paramita is a virtue that helps you reach the far shore of enlightenment, it says here, but awakening. In the Theravada traditions, 10 paramis, generosity, virtue, renunciation, wisdom, and we've talked about wisdom before. It's not about being more knowledgeable or whatever. It's about seeing things clearly and yeah, energy, patience. Energy, I probably would put as effort, how your diligence, patience, truthfulness, determination, not through grim determination, but more setting your heart to forward on a regular basis, loving kindness and equanimity. In Mahayana traditions, the six paramitas, generosity, morality, patience, energy, meditation, wisdom, and then it's sometimes expanded to 10. I also looked up the let me just, the
Tathagata.
Tathagata. So I
Tathagata.
looked it up and it says
Thus come,
Ta
thus gone. Yeah.
Tataha, often spelled suchness or thusness, refers to the true nature of reality as it is, beyond concepts, labels, or dualistic thinking. Tatata, suchness, means things just as they are, points to the ultimate, unchanging nature of all phenomena. It is not a thing, but a way things truly are when seen without delusion or confusion. I prefer confusion because you go, I'm really, I've got these thoughts going round and round and round and round, and I'm really muddled, you know. It's closely related to shunyata, emptiness, the insight that things lack inherent separate existence, and tathagata, the one who has realized suchness, a title the Buddha uses for himself. In simple terms, tatata is the reality that remains when all our stories, judgments, and mental constructions fall away. I obviously spelt tagada. I said
Tathagata.
taga. I did, but it got
Yeah.
me the wrong. But we got there in the end. So
We got there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So that's right. Like when it's just kind of like the raw experience, right? Raw
and
experience.
and I wanted to add something. So, you know, we often have this thing, and I have this really strong practice, which is to notice this. And I think this has been my most effective practice. It's to notice the small things that people do to help me feel at ease. So earlier this week, I was at the operations center for the transport, the state transport agency, which looks at the whole of the state, Queensland, for all of them, trains, buses, ferries, trams, everything. And and I arrived, and I asked a question, and then somebody asked me a question um, back. And he goes, "Oh my goodness, you have such energy," and I explained that, well, partly it's my disposition. I just have lots of energy, but mostly it's restored or maintained because I see the kind gestures that people do to me to help me feel at ease. So the other day, he just answered me a question back, and he took an interest, and he kind of engaged with me about the topic. Now, they seem like, oh, well, why is that important? But then when you ask a question to somebody and they go, yeah, okay. I don't know if you've had that experience, but I have it a lot. I notice it when somebody doesn't do that. And so I go, oh, wow, that's really lovely. That person sort of put me at ease in that way. And so I've been thinking about this idea of how to be, Buddhism's got this whole thing about being happy. And I think that's not really a great translation. And I don't know what the correct translation is, but for me, I find that's like I'm supposed to be, way, it's kind of delusion and way and excitable. And I think it can be too confusing,
Totally.
because particularly in America, you've got the pursuit of happiness is a sort of in your constitution or whatever it's called. And I think, the Russians, they don't even want happiness. It was too hard.
Don't
No,
smile at them. Yeah, that's right.
you don't smile because you are crazy. You are seen as crazy if you do that. So I think it's much more um, the capacity to feel comfort, the desire to feel comfort. It's that simple. It's like me twisting my ankle. and it hurts. So do I want to move away from the discomfort of that hurt? Yes, I do, actually. Would I like not to have a twisted ankle and be hobbling around the house with a cup, trying to make a cup of tea? Of course. Do I want to be sort of slightly at an angle? No, I don't. I want to be comfortable. I'd rather have you sit there, but I can't because of my leg. So I can't. So I think maybe that's discomfort is maybe a better way to describe dukkha, and sukha is comfort. I don't know, but I think that's a better way. And when we see the translation of the Tathagata, which is to see things as they are, we with the suchness, we a person who sees things as they are. Actually, you just have comfort without being niggled at by an axle wheel that's grumpy at you. Anyway, that's my thought. So there you go.
I get the sentiment and I appreciate it too. For me personally, I would refine it just a little bit because, from what I understand, being high on heroin is very comfortable. You know,
Yeah, but
that's
you've
not what
got
we're
the
talking
come
about.
down. So it's not,
Yeah,
but it's not comfortable because I'm sure heroin is like amazing. There's a reason why people do it, a lot of pain, have the heroin, no
but the
pain
come
until
down
you get
is,
the come down.
yeah, that's a good
And
point.
so and it's the come down which is the problem. And then you are not comfortable because then you have to go out
That's right.
and you'll do anything for that
That's
high
right.
again.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think it's there. So
Sure,
anyway,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and I like what you said about ease. That's if I were to choose it, ease for me is great because that's in the Metta Sutta too. Contentment, I resonate with that because in Denmark, from what it's just not culturally appropriate to be really extrovertedly showy in a happy manner, right? It's just not how people's dispositions are. But contentment and cozy culture and comfort, like you're saying, that's very valued. So yeah, and so the only other thing, some people they need more of a comfort zone, and some people need less. I'm thinking like some of the generations maybe that have been maybe overly mollycoddled have basically said that they could never do anything wrong, that they're basically lied to and said, "Oh, you're doing so wonderful and so great," in the wrong or in different context where maybe that doesn't apply. Of course, we're all worthy of our own love and the love and affection from others. Of course, that's where the equality goes and the comfort. So, and then what comes to mind around is nourishment, right? Nourishment. The only thing is with this, we talked about this before. We've got pleasant, which is basically comfort, right? And we've got helpful. That's the goal. That's what we want all the time. It's pleasant and it's helpful. But sometimes we have something pleasant and it's not helpful, and we don't want that though, right? So and then we have unpleasant and helpful. That's actually something that is of value, and it sucks not to have the pleasantness around it. But some things that aren't pleasant in the short term can be helpful, and especially in the long term. And then we have the one that everybody agrees on: unpleasant, unhelpful. So that's the only caveat here I would say around this. You know what I mean? Now, this I'm not talking about tough love. Suck it up. This is good for you. Not that. It's just you think I'm trying to think of an example of when it's not pleasant, but it's good for me. You know what I mean? It's helpful.
I'm I'm gonna sort of throw it at you. Okay, so Deborah today, she has
Hmm.
said that her mum is very, very unwell with thyroid cancer. And
Yeah.
it's very from what it's I if it's not terminal, then it's kind of, that's certainly a question that's being asked. And so describe to me your framework
Mm,
in a way that is appropriate for Deborah in her situation with her mum. Tell me.
mm. Well, don't go do heroin, because you're in pain to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah. How does it feel? And whatever you're going through, where we need to discern what's helpful and what's not, and then we need to go towards the helpful. And then so if the helpful part of it is pleasant, that's all the better. But if there's also some unhelpful thing, then maybe we need to just keep going towards what's helpful, regardless of whether it's pleasant or not. Of course, if we have the option to make it pleasant, as well, then we aim for that, right? Now, I'm blanking on what it is, so you have to kind of go through moment by moment. And the thing with emotions, I feel, is they can change so rapidly, and it could be unhelpful at times to feel them, and it could be unhelpful at times to ignore them and pretend they don't exist and to numb
Mm,
out, right? So it really depends, right? This is where we need the discernment in friends and wise guidance, because sometimes it's both ways. Sometimes we need to feel it deeply, and sometimes it's too much, and it's not
mm,
helpful to do that,
mm,
right?
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, as somebody who's experienced a bit of grief, what do I think? Pleasant, helpful. I think I think sometimes pleasant is helpful, even when it might seem like it's such a intense time. You don't know whether you're Arthur. And this is an Australian expression. You don't know whether you're Arthur or Martha. Um, so so sometimes you don't know what is helpful in that
Of
situation
course,
because it's
of
so
course,
searingly painful.
of course.
Um, and so I think there is a really strong need, a bit like what you said before about giving yourself a bit of slack,
Yes,
and I think also reaching out to others when it gets too much. My
absolutely.
thing that I often say to women who are pregnant is, if you get to the point where you hate your baby, your child, it means you need to help. You need to ask for help, and that has been the single best advice that because they get lots of advice, and they go, okay, I hate my baby, I'm going to harm my baby because I'm tired and I can't cope, I'm going to ask for help. And they say this is the single thing. And I think the same kind of situation arises because it's such a state of crisis and it's so unbearable that if you are at the point where you are hurting yourself, reach out for help. So I don't know, maybe, I don't know. That's
No,
just
absolutely.
my
It's
thoughts.
I was
Yeah.
speaking with a friend a few days ago, and he was relating some really intense things from childhood, and just unbelievable, unbearable things. And yeah, in some people, abuse is never okay, right?
Mm,
And compassion is always the right response. I feel appropriate
mm,
response to pain, and yes. So, but not justifying staying around in abuse too, if abuse is being done. And then, like Wendy says, if that, yeah, and if we look at karmic consequences, let's just say it'll be better long term for both, everyone involved, to reach out and do that. Yeah. So yeah. And people are here to help and serve, and without them they don't have a purpose either. It's not to make an excuse for bad things to happen so people could come in and be a hero or say, but no, there are people here. You're helping them out too by allowing them to help you. You know what I mean? So yeah, and just, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I think that probably
Sh-
responds to that. I just think it's really easy to do the theory of this without really engaging with kind of how hard some situations just are, and it's unbearable. But we
it
have a thing here from Icy
Mhm.
Fox 2, which is,
Okay.
"Hi, what's your opinion on furries?" And so
Oh
it
my
came up
goodness.
at the time when I was talking
Sorry.
about fairies, so I don't know what that is. But if this is not a Buddhist meditation Q&, this is a Buddhist meditation Q&A. So if that's not about Buddhist meditation
Yeah.
Q&A, then I'm gonna let that one go. So I'm just putting it up
Yeah,
there.
that's thank you, Wendy, for taking the reins there, because yeah, this I another looks like a little trickster archetype. I think we got another one of these comments. I mean, this is what happens when you're on streaming live to social media platforms. Sometimes I'll just laugh and brush it off. That's kind of funny. So Wendy can look it up later if she want, if she's really that interested. But the thing,
I'm Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's probably some scummy thing, and which and I'm happy not to know what that is. Who cares?
Well, that's right, and for the most part, but also it's for younger generations that there's actually anyway, I'll give Wendy some background time if we ever want to address that, because it could be a younger generational thing that can be more serious as far as asking for help in a certain way. So let me just put another little end on that is, something the reason some people I think aren't just don't do it automatically is because it can cause complications sometimes, and we can go to the wrong people for help too. So let's acknowledge that as well. And so it's not easy. We have to use discernment too, and sometimes we're not able to access that discernment. So again, this is why really good spiritual friends are helpful, because they've got your back and you've got their back, right? And if you
Yeah.
have a teacher that you trust and can resonate with and receive benefit from, it's a great another great person to run by, to double check choices and stuff when you can. Yeah.
I've just dropped my cold pack, so sorry about going off screen momentarily.
Wendy.
It's just the joy of having this discomfort. Um, yeah, so yeah, I'm sorry for being naivety. I actually decided I would switch off a great deal of social media and things that were unpleasant in life. I decided a few
Well,
years
good on
ago
you.
not to watch the news
Good on
because
you.
I just decided it made me unhappy, and I decided, who needs to be in an abusive space? I found out with the media, the ordinary news media, that their job is to report the bad. So basically, if you just want to be miserable,
Yeah.
watch the news, because that's actually what they plan for. And so I just decided, "Well, I just didn't need to do that." So I don't know about lots of things, and I'm not entirely
It's
unhappy about that, because look how much joy I have in my life compared to people who
of
spend
course.
their lives watching the news.
And I'm
Anyway,
the same way. I've been resensitized to that. I haven't had a TV for years. I scan headlines from time to time or some social media stuff, in the mainstream. And that's right. It's a shock value to sell advertisements on the most um, base level. I mean, it can get a lot more insidious than that, but it's pretty obvious that they're there to do the bidding of their paymasters. And the more things they say, and it's not a dog bites man that's news, it's man bites dog. So the more extreme, the more attention people can get to it, and then the more advertising they can sell. And at the end of the day, does it really help my life? And how much of what I'm reading in the news or seeing in the news is actually applies to my everyday life? And I would say very, very little, for the most part, right?
yeah.
Politics are designed to trigger people out emotionally, and so yeah, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are already onto that. Well, mhm.
I mean, just making a sort of a comment on that, and I did look up furries, and I thought, yep, I'm glad I haven't gone there.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Um, so, but I do think that what we are looking at here, and in Tibetan Buddhism, there is the Tonglen slogans, and one of them is to what does it say? It says something about abandon poisonous food. And
Uh,
poisonous food is not just poisonous
that's
food,
right.
like don't eat toxic foods, like ultra processed foods and stuff like that, but actually don't take in uh, obviously drugs, alcohol, all that sort of stuff, but also don't take in um, information that is toxic to your mind. So news would be one of those, and also people who are toxic. Now, it's not easy. So a friend of mine, his mental health is not great, and he's made a big mess of his life, and he's had to move back to his parents, and it's a sort of extended community where there are certain social obligations, and it's very tricky because there's all these social obligations, and you can't say that I can't say this to my parents because they will share that in the broader community. So it's not
Wow.
like, yeah. So so where was I going that? So in that instance, don't what did I say? Abandon poisonous foods. It
Yeah.
means try and keep out as much as you can of environments that are toxic and unhealthy. And I think that often means leaving workplaces if you can, if it becomes too much, where people are being really mean to you. So that, yeah.
This is the nutriments, right? What Wendy mentioned. It's not just physical food, which we can all know that there's poisonous foods, right? It's not a
Mm,
value judgment. It's not that I'm being insensitive or not respecting people's dietary choices. There are certain things that make people sick, and why it might be an inconvenience for, a group that somebody can't eat something. This is something else. So, but then, like Wendy said, there's also emotional nutriment. There's thoughts in the mind, and that's the news, right? And then I think it's consciousness, right? There's these nutriments, and a lot of us don't think of it like that, but once we really see that these have a huge effect on the mind and body and heart and spirit and well-being, we do this. And it's even more complex because what some people think is totally socially acceptable and okay and not bad for them, people with more sensitivity, that it really affects them,
mm.
and then you have this whole older, not just older generation, but some people are insensitive. Then they say, oh, you're a sissy, or that's not real, you're making that up, or come on, just buck it up, and no, it's BS. And then you have the other extreme where people are so kind of fragile and frail, and are like, there's hardly any resilience whatsoever, and every little thing can trigger like a turmoil and a crisis. You know what I mean? So these are the two extremes of these. So where do we kind of go towards the middle and help the others on, without being judgmental either, but also saying, hey, we need to. So yeah, how do we do it? I'll just ask Wendy that instead of me
Uh,
just fumbling in the dark here, right? How do we bring the teach more resilience, and at the same time teach more tolerance to the other extreme, right?
I think it's much easier than you imagine. So the first thing is don't tell anybody how to live their life. That's their life. Because otherwise, if somebody tries to tell me, you should do this and you should do that, I want to I want I'm gonna hit them. I mean, I don't hit them literally, but I just in my mind I don't anymore. No, I mean I never did, but I used to give as good as I got and then some. So anger has been my work, it's been my journey. But if somebody tells me how to live my life, it's hurtful. It means you don't really understand me. And so what I tend to do is to do my I it what it means is I need to listen better. If I don't understand what's important to them, I need to listen better to them. I need to tune my sensitivity to them. Now, what has this got to do with meditation Q&A, we might ask, because we have to keep on track here, is I think in order to listen to others, we have to listen to ourselves. And my hunch is a lot of what we're doing in our meditation practice is actually learning to listen to ourselves. That's really what and I think that's learning to listen to ourselves and learning to be kind to ourselves. And when we can do that for ourselves, and that's why I love this practice where you notice the small gestures that people do to help you feel at ease. Like in that moment, you said, well, I'll just let Wendy talk about that because I can see she's bursting to talk about it. And you help me feel at ease. And
And plus, I
so
didn't have anything to offer too. So you,
a great combination.
right?
And so I think that it's that simple. And when you notice all these small things that people do to help you feel at ease, um, I think you naturally become buoyed and people just delight. Like these guys that I met at this transport thing on Tuesday, and they're like, "Wow." And I felt like somebody was going, "She's got God," or something. And it's like, no, it's like, because I do meet a lot of people here who are very, very, they're in the evangelical churches and they say, God told me to do it. And I met somebody on Monday and she just, that's her vocation because God told her to do it. And I think this is great. It's just not the way that I do it. And, and, and if I notice the small things that people do to help me feel at ease, I can listen. I remain buoyed. It brings an energy that people just love. So this morning on my little walk, before I twisted my ankle, I bumped into one of the locals. Now, she's not somebody I would ever socialize with. She comes from a different class and very poor, down and out. And I just went, "Oh, I've been looking for you. I've been wondering how you're going." And she said this, that, and all the rest. And it was just so lovely. And if I was somebody who didn't come with that open-hearted love, people just want to feel loved. They want to feel listened to. They want to feel understood. It's not complicated. And so that's what I love about that practice. And she sees me and she just lights up. And I see her and I light up. And it forms this really virtuous cycle. So, did I answer your question? I've got no idea. But I've had a great time to say.
No, yeah, I was just lost in the good energy here. It's great. And absolutely, people can feel this, know it right away, right? And it's a great protective mechanism because people can let their guards down. They know you have their best interests at heart. And I love how you do metta because you're out there like a scientist in some ways too. Like, okay, what are people offering me that makes me feel at ease? Well, then I have that in my repertoire and then I can give that back. And I know new ways to dole this out to other people to know how to make them feel at ease. So it's just like this compounding, what's the curve that goes up, exponential and into, these are limitless states too. So there is no limit. And it's great. How many times are we told to limit ourselves and to have boundaries, when the time's appropriate, but there's no need for limits. And there are no limits around this too, there's just appropriateness and when the time's right. And when this state meets hard times, then it turns to compassion, and when it meets other people's happiness, it turns to rejoicing. So yeah, there's more than one person happy. And yeah, then there's the deep underlying equanimity that kind of balances it all out. So yeah, these are beautiful states. Yeah, absolutely. And what you said about listening in meditation, it's so on spot, I feel, especially for those, I think, living in community and in group containers and then socializing before and after. I'm thinking at monasteries and stuff, this listening is a really, I mean, you can see it because you're living with people too. And I like this whole body listening. And it's not just with our ears either, right? It's attuning to the other person and what's going on with them and the interaction, the relationship that's happening, whether we want it to or not, and yeah, cutting slack where it needs to be slack. If the person's open to be held accountable, we're there to offer that too. Like, what's needed now? I love this really standard, basic question that
Yeah,
does a lot of work. What's
yeah.
needed now? Yeah.
So, M. Reed is on channel
Oh,
today.
welcome.
Woohoo!
Cool.
Lovely to see
Good
you
to have
again
you back.
today. So
Yes.
she says, that is what Deborah can offer to her mum also. Accept the strength she has and she can walk the path she is in now, one step at a time. It's with true, honest love. And then the listen to herself part, and then listen to her body, etc. Her body wants her attention now. So this is a bit of all communal love here, just not giving advice, but just putting forward some ideas that may or may not work. So everything is always a question. What's this? Everything in life is a question. Does this
That's
work? Does this not
great.
work?
I love
Yeah.
this, offering her to accept the strength she has. So that's right. So there's still some strength there, and that can be amplified, right? So focusing on what strength is there can be acknowledged and amplified too, and focused on that. So where we focus, the energy will actually go to, right? And yeah, one step at a time. That's how we walk. We don't. I mean, some people, I guess, can leap for a little bit, and maybe do some air walking when they're jumping through the sky, but still, it's basically one step at a time, right? And listening to the body is definitely key, and that's a
Yeah.
great metaphor. Listening to the body. What does the body need? The body won't lie to you like the mind. The mind has no shame. It will come up with all kinds of stuff, but the body is pretty much, as far as I understand, it's incapable of lying. So you have that really steady resource there, to listen to our bodies. What does it need?
Well, my body is feeling a little bit uncomfortable here, so I'll be glad when it's an hour up. I
Yes,
can
exactly. It's
reorganize
getting very
myself.
close here.
So,
I wonder if there's anything else here in my little description. What else can catch us off balance in meditation and the wider world? Well,
oh,
I'll,
well, how long's your
yeah,
list there? I
yeah,
mean,
exactly. How
what's
much
not gonna
time do we have,
yeah,
right?
for sure. Um, but I think going back to your thing, the mind is not even loyal to itself.
No
And
shame either. Yep.
it doesn't want to go into feeling any shame, and I think that's yeah. So, but I think that, as you say, the body keeps the score. That's really
Mhm.
what is truthful. Yeah, and I think um, just it's okay to feel hurt. So the mind doesn't ever want to feel hurt. They did it to me, but I think I was watching a television series, um, and it was somebody who'd been caught for a very bad crime, and he said, "Oh, how could this happen to me?" The police officer said, "You did this to yourself. Actually, you did this. You did this. You brought this onto yourself. Actually." And I think about that, and it's a little. I don't want to be sort of self-recriminating or anything, but I think there is something about um, yeah, I don't want to be self-recriminating, but I think there is something about taking responsibility and not avoiding reality and the pain of the body. Yeah.
Absolutely. No one else is responsible for our speech and
Mm,
action.
yeah.
So we have to take responsibility, heir of my comma, owner of my comma, whatever I do, be it skillful or unskillful, I'm going to be the heir of that action. So that's just how it works on a conventional level, as far as I know. So yeah, absolutely. And there's, you mentioned shame, it's a big one. There's healthy shame, shame that's helpful, actually,
Mm,
that prevents harm in the future for ourselves and others. And then there's the unhelpful shame. Well, it's just this looping, and how could I be such a bad person? I'm so
mm,
horrible, on
mm,
and on and on. And then I get in this rut and get in the mud and can't get
mm,
out. And I can never do anything.
mm.
It's just on and on and on. So yeah, there's a helpful shame and an unhelpful shame for sure.
So my friend who's found himself in this bad situation and is now living back at home, that's what he lives with, and I'm trying to support him, and it's actually quite painful. He also follows a different religion, so I don't want to intrude on his religious inclination, and but I want to honor that humanity, um, and but I also am very straight with him. I'm going, well, you actually brought this on yourself because you've been not wanting to look at your mental health, and we've tried this over a few years. And he's always going, no, it's the situation, it's the situation, it's the situation. It's like, it's not the situation. It's actually you're not going there, and there is something, and I don't want to kind of suggest that Deborah's got to be always present, but if you're um, the one common denominator in all your relationships is you.
Yeah.
So if you have these recurring crises, there is something that you are doing that you need to look at. And I think that that's where meditation can be super helpful.
It,
And I
it,
think
abs-
that's its strength. Yeah.
Absolutely, it was for me, because I there's so many things I couldn't see without it.
Mm,
And yes, there are complex causes and conditions, and we're not responsible for everything that happens to us. Not everything is karma, but where's the willingness to say, okay, I take responsibility. This is going to empower me when I take self-responsibility. What can I do to address this? Because it doesn't matter so much what happened in the past. Right now, it can change. due to my intentionality of what actions and choices I make now will have an effect, will pay off in the future. So that's what should be focused on. What is my role, my choices in this right now, and for my long-term benefit and happiness and that of others. So yes, and that's empowering. We can do that. We can take responsibility and do what we can do to change things, because our action, they do make a difference. Otherwise, there would be no point of doing or saying anything, be complete. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so my friend for my birthday, I said, "This is what I want as my birthday present," and she got her kids to decorate it for me. And it says, I think Arthur Ashe, who is a tennis player who grew up black man,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he grew up
Famous
under
tennis player.
segregation
Yeah.
during the 50s,
Mhm.
and his motto was, "Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can, and never dispute with the umpire, who is always going to be white." So, and I think, but I love that. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. But also be aware there are structural problems that mean that you can't just do what you want to do. And I think there's a hard reality. Yeah. So
Oh,
that's what we're
totally.
at time. We're at time.
We're at time.
Goodness.
There's one last thing I want to say about the Christian thing is, yes, do what God tells you to do, unless he tells you to start a religious war. Please don't do that, because that's been known to happen before. So please don't start a religious war. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
Same of any religion, Buddhist, otherwise. Yep.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. I don't know if that's exactly where I wanted to end it, but here we are. And so may everyone's practice go well, and may you communicate what you need to communicate in a skillful manner. And yeah, do it in a balanced way, right?
And thanks everyone for being on the show and bringing you here. So lovely to have you
Exactly.
here. Beautiful. Love your
And sharing and
contribution.
chiming in,
Yeah.
be it eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or furries. So yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
all that,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. All right.
all right.
Sending love to everyone. Bye.
Yes, love you all. Goodbye.